We are waiting for President Obama to make a statement at the G20 summit in Pittsburgh this morning, formally accusing Iran of having a secret facility to produce nuclear fuel and calling for international inspection of that facility. If Iran refuses, that, of course, could lead to new sanctions, something President Obama has been urging for some time now. Two key U.S. allies, Britain and France, are joining with the United States to demand inspections, and CBS News senior White House correspondent Bill Plant, covering the G20 in Pittsburgh, joins us now. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Harry. The president apparently has decided to do this because this is a good time to put some more pressure on Iran. There's a meeting coming up on October 1st of the major nations, the 5 Security Council members plus Germany. For the first time, the U.S. will have direct talks with Iran. The Iranian nuclear program is not on the table, according to the Iranians, but they would like very much, the people who are talking to Iran, to put it there and to get some pledges about slowing down that program. This will give them more leverage. And this is apparently why he's decided to go public with this now. The U.S. has known about this for a while, Harry.
It's very interesting because Iran came out this week and they sort of opened the door to some sort of inspections again. They must have known this was coming down the pike. The other part of this is so interesting is President Obama's meeting with President Medvedev from Russia. This whole notion that suddenly now there's an added piece of leverage in this puzzle that didn't exist before.
Not only the Russians, Harry, but also the Chinese. Nobody really wants to see Iran go nuclear in a weapons sense. But the Russians particularly, and also the Chinese, have commercial ties with Iran that they don't want to lose either. So getting the Russian president to say out loud that sanctions were a possibility was a big step. Of course, actually getting the sanctions may still prove to be very difficult.
Because they have had this conversation before. The Russians have acknowledged that this is a problem. It's got to be, if these nuclear facilities, these new heretofore unknown nuclear facilities exist, got to be impetus to more sanctions. It's also very interesting that the Iranians were coming to town this week saying, you know, we really need some more nuclear material because we want to use it for medical purposes. This sounds now like a bald-faced lie, and sounds like what they really were looking for the nuclear material for was for these secret sites.
Well, Harry, the Iranians have always maintained that their nuclear program was for nuclear fuel for electricity production. Now they've added the medical. But this particular facility is in a mountain, buried, hidden in a mountain 100 miles south of Tehran, near the holy city of Qum. And the president will call this morning for immediate inspection of this new facility by the International Atomic Energy Agency. The Iranians, of course, are now a bit on the spot. They admitted the existence of this new facility, but only Monday, and they call it just a pilot project.
This is so different to have happened in the middle of one of these G20. They used to be a G6 to a G7 to a G8. It's now a G20. Because normally there's a lot of formality. There is some conversations about economic activity. How unusual is this to have happened in the middle of one of these kinds of meetings?
Well, Harry, to be perfectly honest with you, there's almost never major news out of these economic meetings. They are mostly all talk. In fact, they're saying now that instead of just having 8 major economies, they're going to make the G20, the 20 economies, the major source for the economic meetings.
All right, Bill, I think we've got the statement from the president now. Let's take a look and a listen.
Good morning. We are here to announce that yesterday in Vienna, the United States, the United Kingdom, and France presented detailed evidence to the IAEA demonstrating that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been building a covert uranium enrichment facility near Qom for several years. Earlier this week, the Iranian government presented a letter to the IAEA that made reference to a new enrichment facility years after they had started its construction. The existence of this facility underscores Iran's continuing unwillingness to meet its obligations under UN Security Council resolutions and IAEA requirements. We expect the IAEA to immediately investigate this disturbing information and to report to the IAEA Board of Governors. Now, Iran's decision to build yet another nuclear facility without notifying the IAEA represents a direct challenge to the basic compact at the center of the non-proliferation regime. These rules are clear. All nations have the right to peaceful nuclear energy. Those nations with nuclear weapons must move towards disarmament. Those nations without nuclear weapons must forsake them. That compact has largely held for decades, keeping the world far safer and more secure. And that compact depends on all nations living up to their responsibilities. This sight deepens a growing concern that Iran is refusing to live up to those international responsibilities, including specifically revealing all nuclear-related activities. As the international community knows, this is not the first time that Iran has concealed information about its nuclear program. Iran has a right to peaceful nuclear power that meets the energy needs of its people. But the size and configuration of this facility is inconsistent with a peaceful program. Iran is breaking rules that all nations must follow, endangering the global non-proliferation regime, denying its own people access to the opportunity they deserve, and threatening the stability and security of the region and the world. It is time for Iran to act immediately to restore the confidence of the international community by fulfilling its international obligations. We remain committed to serious, meaningful engagement with Iran to address the nuclear issue through the P5+1 negotiations. Through this dialogue, we are committed to demonstrating that international law is not an empty promise, that obligations must be kept, and that treaties will be enforced. And that's why there's a sense of urgency about the upcoming meeting on October 1st between Iran, the permanent members of the UN Security Council, and Germany. At that meeting, Iran must be prepared to cooperate fully and comprehensively with the IAEA to take concrete steps to create confidence and transparency in its nuclear program, and to demonstrate that it is committed to establishing its peaceful intentions through meaningful dialogue and concrete actions. To put it simply, Iran must comply with UN Security Council resolutions and make clear it is willing to meet its responsibilities as a member of the community of nations. We have offered Iran a clear path toward greater international integration if it lives up to its obligations, and that offer stands. But the Iranian government must now demonstrate through deeds its peaceful intentions, or be held accountable to international standards and international law. I should point out that although the United Kingdom, France, and the United States made the presentation to Vienna, that Germany, a member of the P5+1, and Chancellor Merkel in particular, who could not be here this morning, wished to associate herself with these remarks. I would now like to turn to President Sarkozy of France for a brief statement.
That's President Obama at the G20 in Pittsburgh talking about this heretofore unknown nuclear facility that they have unveiled in Iran, a facility that they say is inconsistent with the peaceful use of nuclear power. Both President Obama and Gordon Brown and Nicolas Sarkozy in unison this morning decrying the discovery of this nuclear facility. There'll be much more tonight on the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.